Bob Iger is 70-something, under contract until 2026, and Disney is still trying to figure out who's going to take his chair when he finally decides to stop respawning like a Disney Plus reboot. The board says they'll name his successor in early 2026. They've got a formal succession process and a short list of internal candidates, which is corporate speak for, we've got no idea, but we're going to pretend we do, because that's what we do in the corporate world. Will it be Josh D'Amaro, the theme park golden boy? Dana Walden, queen of TV deals and Hollywood politics? Or Jimmy Pitaro, the sports guy? Or will Disney do what Disney always does and just keep Iger forever? This is The Critical Nerd, and today we're talking about Disney's CEO Hunger Games and who's most likely to walk out of the castle wearing the mouse crown. Welcome back to The Critical Nerd, where we talk movies, money, and mouse-shaped corporate chaos without the pixie dust PR. If you're new here, I'm Chris, The Critical Nerd, your tour guide through the burning ruins of modern Hollywood. If you're a returning viewer, you already know the drill. Grab your popcorn, strap in, and try not to think about how many streaming services you're paying for. Today, we're asking a simple question that Disney has somehow managed to make incredibly complicated. Who replaces Bob Iger as CEO of the Walt Disney Company? Because here's what we know. Iger's contract runs through December 31st, 2026, after the board literally extended him because they still didn't have a succession plan that didn't end in disaster. The board has now promised Wall Street they'll pick a new CEO in early 2026, and they brought in former Morgan Stanley boss James Gorman as chairman specifically to oversee that process. Recent reporting says the race has entered the final stage, and the focus is on a handful of internal candidates, with Josh D'Amaro and Dana Walden widely seen as the frontrunners, and Alan Bergman and Jimmy Pitaro as long shots. So in this video, we're going to do this. We're going to break down how Disney got itself back into another succession mess, look at the main contenders and what each one would mean for Disney's future, and I'll give you my odds and my personal pick, plus the nightmare scenario where Iger just never leaves. Before we dive in, want you guys to do me a favor. This will help out with the YouTube algorithm. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and ring that notification bell and share this with one friend who still believes Disney will turn it around next year. First, let's talk about how we ended up in Succession, the Disney edition in the first place. Bob Iger originally stepped down in 2020, handed the keys to Bob Chapek, and then watched from the sidelines as everything caught fire. Chapek struggled with the parks during the pandemic, got tangled in political fights, and managed to alienate creatives, fans, and Wall Street all at once. So in late 2022, the board did the corporate equivalent of, you up? And called Iger back in the middle of the night. Not only did they bring him back, in 2023 they extended his contract to the end of 2026, saying they needed continuity while Disney, quote-unquote, transformed and figured out succession properly this time. Let me translate that for you guys in the back. We messed this up once. We cannot screw it up again, or the shareholders will start throwing lightsabers. To calm investors, Disney later announced that the board, under new chairman James Gorman, plans to identify the next CEO by early 2026, given roughly a year for a handoff before Iger finally rides off into the sunset. So, the clock is ticking, Wall Street knows it, employees know it, and every executive just below Iger knows it, because they're basically starring in a very expensive, very real corporate reality show. Let's start with the guy a lot of analysts and reports think is in the pole position. That would be Josh D'Amaro. Now, I don't know much about Josh, but we're going to find out together. D'Amaro is the chairman of Disney Experiences. That's parks, cruise ships, consumer products, essentially the part of Disney that still feels like it prints money, while the movie side plays, how low can we go? According to reports, his division has become Disney's most profitable segment, pulling in over $8 billion in profit across the first 9 months of fiscal 2025, and absolutely carrying the company while streaming and film fumble their way through the post-pandemic era. He's also the guy front and center on Disney's massive cruise expansion. New ships like Disney Destiny, packed with heroes and villains branding, Cruella piano bars, and please spend money at sea energy. A push to turn Disney stories into full-blown immersive experiences, which analysts see as a big growth engine. So what's the case for Josh D'Amaro? Well, he knows the parks and experiences business, which is Disney's most reliable profit center. He is beloved by a lot of cast members and fans, at least compared to the usual faceless corporate suits. He's been at Disney nearly 30 years, so he understands the culture, the brand, and how not to get lost at Epcot. The case against him? He has no direct experience running the movie or TV side, and Disney's entertainment division is where the creative and brand damage has been the worst. Streaming strategy, content budgets, and fixing Disney's broken relationship with fans, that's not exactly the job description of a parks guy. So if D'Amaro becomes CEO, you probably get strong focus on parks, cruises, in-person experiences, more investment in real-world Disney worlds you actually visit, a giant question mark hovering over Disney's film, TV, and streaming strategy. He is we'll just say the safe financial pick. Less about saving Star Wars and Marvel creatively, more about keeping the cash machines running while the content side slowly detoxes. Now, next up, we have to talk about the Hollywood power player that would be Dana Walden. Dana Walden is co-chair of Disney Entertainment, aka the person who actually lives in the world of Hollywood agents, talents, and TV deals. Walden oversees a huge chunk of Disney's TV business, including ABC, Hulu's original content, and a massive portfolio of shows and relationships. She's the one executives point to when they say, "Hey, we need someone who understands content talent in the town." The case for Dana Walden: she knows the entertainment and TV machine inside and out. She can negotiate with talent, deal with guilds, and actually speak Hollywood instead of just spreadsheet. If Disney believes the content crisis is the core problem, brand damage, Marvel fatigue, Star Wars fatigue, endless mistakes, or endless remakes, I should say. Well, they have had endless mistakes too. Then a content-focused leader makes sense. Now, the case against her: reports suggest her stock is taken hits with some investors, including over controversial decisions like handling high-profile talent situations that angered parts of the shareholder base. And candidly, Disney's entertainment output under this whole era has been, well, let's just say uneven, to put it politely. If Walden gets the job, expect a CEO more focused on getting Disney's creative house in order, a heavier emphasis on streaming, TV deals, and rebuilding relationships with talent and showrunners, and potentially less focus on parks and experiences compared to a D'Amaro regime. So in other words, D'Amaro is parks and profit, Walden is Hollywood and content. Both fix part of the problem, neither obviously fixes all of it. So let's talk about the long shots and the wild cards in the mix, shall we? Then you've got maybe, but probably not crowd. Yeah, Jimmy Pitaro, the sports strategist. Jimmy Pitaro is head of ESPN and one of the architects behind the giant ESPN streaming pivot that Disney is betting on, including a big standalone sports streaming service launching with partners like Fox and Warner Brothers Discovery. The case for Pitaro is this: if Disney thinks the future of sports and streaming, this is the guy who lives and breathes that world. ESPN is a critical piece of Disney's future revenue, especially as cable continues to die. Now, the case against him: he's the sports guy, not the whole company guy. Parks, animation, film, consumer products, that's a lot outside of his primary lane. Now you have our Alan Bergman, the quiet film guy. Alan Bergman, Walden's co-chair on the entertainment side, is respected and has deep experience in film. But most reporting has him as more of a long shot compared to Walden or D'Amaro. He's the classic, if the top two blow up politically, call Alan. There have also been mentions of external candidates in some reporting, including people like EA CEO Andrew Wilson being floated in the mix. Bringing in an outsider would be, well, that would be the nuclear option. It signals the board thinks Disney needs a total reset. I'm one of those that thinks Disney needs a total reset. But it also risks another Bob Chapek situation, someone who doesn't fully understand Disney's unique culture, IP, and fan base. And after Chapek, the board is probably terrified of making that mistake again. So, what Disney actually needs? Let's forget about the horse race for a second. What kind of CEO does Disney actually need in 2026? Because, folks, this ain't 2010 anymore. Disney isn't just riding high on Marvel, Pixar, and Star Wars. They're dealing with franchise fatigue and a seriously damaged brand with core fans. A streaming model that still hasn't fully proven it can replace the old cable cash firehouse. A parks division that's profitable, but consistently flirting with the limits of how much they can charge families before people just stop coming. They need someone who can rebuild trust with the audience, stop lecturing, stop chasing social media applause, and start making movies and shows people actually want to see twice. Treat streaming like a business, not a vanity metric. Subscriber numbers are great, but profits matter. Protect the parks, because right now that's the lifeboat keeping the company afloat. End the political circus. Remember when Iger said he wanted to, and I quote, quiet the noise around culture wars? They need a CEO who actually follows through on that. The problem is no single candidate checks every box perfectly. DeMauro is strong on parks and experiences, weaker on content. Walden is strong on content in Hollywood, weaker on parks and family pricing realities. Pitaro is strong on sports and streaming, weaker on everything else. So whoever gets the job is going to need massive support from the other divisions and a board willing to let them actually make hard choices, not just slap a new paint on old problems. Now, as for me, my odds and final prediction, let's talk about it. Now, this is purely my opinion based on the reporting, the numbers, and a generous dash of sarcasm. Josh DeMauro, he's the favorite. The money says Disney goes with the guy running the profit engine. Parks and experiences are delivering, investors like him, analysts are already calling him a contender, and Disney's cruise expansion is getting glowing attention. Now, Dana Walden, strong contender. If Disney admits the content crisis is the main problem and they want someone who can stabilize Hollywood relationships and rebuild the pipeline, Walden makes sense. But she's carrying the baggage of the current entertainment slate and some controversial calls. Jimmy Pitaro, Alan Bergman, well, they're the long shots. They're important, they're powerful, but the narrative right now is DeMauro versus Walden, with everyone else waiting to see if the board gets cold feet. External hire? Well, that's really unlikely, but not impossible. If things go really sideways, another major flop year, ESPN streaming misfires, or we have an investor revolt, the board could panic and look outside. But after Chapek, that's a very hard sell. My prediction? If Disney stock is being held up mostly by parks and experiences, and that continues into 2026, I think Josh DeMauro walks away with the job with a very strong entertainment lieutenant, maybe Walden, right under him. If the narrative completely shifts and Disney miraculously fixes its content pipeline and streaming story, then Dana Walden becomes a much more natural pick. And hovering all over of that is the nuclear nightmare. Hollywood never learned scenario. Yeah. The board delays again. Bob Iger just keeps going. Would that calm Wall Street for a while? Probably. Would that solve the underlying issues? No, absolutely not. And at some point, Disney has to learn how to function without Iger. The question is whether they're brave enough or desperate enough to finally pull that trigger in 2026. So what do you guys think? Is Josh DeMauro the obvious choice? Does Dana Walden make more sense if Disney actually wants to fix the content slide or content side? Or are we just stuck in the infinite loop of Bob Iger Endgame Part 7? Drop your prediction in the comments. Is it hashtag Team DeMauro, hashtag Team Walden, hashtag Team ESPN guy, or hashtag Iger forever if you think the man is never leaving. If you enjoyed this breakdown, smash that like button, subscribe to The Critical Nerd for more box office autopsies and corporate soap operas, and share this video with a fellow Disney fan who's trying to figure out what the hell is going on in Burbank. Thank you for watching, and as always, I'm Chris, this is The Critical Nerd, and I will see you in the next one.